Good afternoon. It's time for business. My name is Darrell Kwao. Economist Professor Peter Korte has backed the decision by the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank to keep the policy rate at 16%. The Central Bank Governor, Dr. Ernest Addison, cited threats to inflation and economic growth as reason for keeping the rate unchanged. He says, Professor Korte, says it was the right move.
Last couple of months, we haven't seen much depreciation to call for a change in the policy rate. You look at inflation and inflation expectations. We are within the single digits. We haven't seen much change, a significant change in the rate of inflation or people's expectations about inflation in the future for you to revise the policy rate. So all of these factors put together will call for the policy rate to be maintained. A downward revision in the policy rate is also not good because there are other market players, a lot of foreigners who own our bonds, our locally denominated bonds. Now, if you reduce the policy rate, interest rates, they will exit the market, and that will lead to capital flight that can have severe repercussions on our exchange rate. If you recall, in March, April 2019, we had that situation where the policy rate was reduced and there was capital flight. And at the time, IMF said, we're just about exiting the IMF, trying to exit the IMF. And IMF said, Bank of Ghana cannot intervene. So although we had reserves, the Bank of Ghana or the central bank could not intervene. And that led to that turbulence we saw on the exchange rate market. So in a nutshell, a lower interest rate is in line with government policy. But government also has to be cautious because if you lower it too much, there will be capital flight.
With little or no representation, African leaders have been urged to involve more women in the tourism and art industry. Speaking at the first Regional Congress on Women Empowerment in the Tourism Sector, Secretary General of the United Nations World Tourism Organization said including women will accelerate economic growth.
Secretary General of the United Nations World Tourism Organization at the opening called on African leaders to deepen inclusion of women in the marketing and packaging of tourism in Ghana and Africa.
We need to use and to give more role to women empowerment in the special occasion in tourism. And I'm sure that, and we talk with His Excellency, with Mr. Vice President, that tourism can create jobs, and this is the fastest way, and we all need to use this opportunity and to create as fast as we can new jobs and new opportunities for women in this case via tourism.
Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia chronicled to stakeholders how government is transforming the tourist sector to a foreign exchange earner.
The past years have been extraordinary one for the country, as we witnessed remarkable growth in international, regional, and domestic tourism. Ghana is hailed as one of Africa's economic powerhouses, blessed with rich natural resources. We have a diverse culture, an inspiring history from Gold Coast to now Ghana, and a history in governance that champions democracy and peace across the continent.
Also, First Lady of Zimbabwe, Auxilia Mnangagwa, called on African countries to prioritize the inclusion of women in tourism development.
In Zimbabwe, the government has supported the inclusion of women in the tourism sector, and they supported the creation of a Women in Tourism National Chapter. In addition, this development has been taken to the grassroots through the launch of provincial chapters of Women in Tourism.
Even though the tourism sector contributes more than 5% to the economies of Africa with 3 million jobs created each year, the efforts and potential of women have not been well acknowledged. It is against this narrative that the first Regional Congress on Women Empowerment in the tourism sector has been organized here in Accra.
And that's it for business. JoyNews today returns after this break.